Good evening, everybody. It's great to be back on US in the City on US TV. This evening, we have an amazing guest with us, someone who I know personally as his rabbi in Radlett, Cliff Crown, who is the chairman of Brentford Football Club. This is really an exciting time to interview Cliff because it's the season now having kicked off, and Arsenal fans will only know too well that Brentford have started in some style in their first ever Premier League campaign. And so it's a very exciting time to be involved with Brentford, to speak to people at Brentford. It's a place where, as a kid, I played against their youth team, and I know that was down at Griffin Park in those days, and times have never been more exciting than now. So, Cliff, it's a great pleasure to have you with us.
With you.
Oh, fantastic. Glad we got you. So I guess, Cliff, this evening we'd have a fireside chat about your story, both personally and in terms of your Jewish background, and also in terms of your professional endeavours and the success at Brentford and the great times that you're having there now and what the future may bring. So that's really the agenda for this evening.
Great, looking forward to it.
So Cliff, you were brought up where?
I was brought up in Stanmore, actually lived in London Road, which is the same road as where the shul was. And so I spent all of my formative years going to Cheder on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Sundays, and then going to the children's service on obviously every Shabbat morning, and then going on to the youth service after my bar mitzvah. I got bar mitzvahed in the Freeman Sussman Hall because the shul was actually undergoing a major renovation back in 1969. And then as part of that process, I also got involved in the Stanmore Jewish Youth Club, starting as a helper in when I was 14 and finishing up as a leader when I was 22.
So a very, very involved, active Jewish life.
Very much so. My whole life revolved around the shul and football, funnily enough.
Even back then?
Yes, I was. My uncle took me to football when I was 7, and I immediately fell in love with the game. And so I was a regular football supporter and went to many games as a child. And
oh, looks like we've lost Cliff there for a minute. I have anyway, but let's see if we can get Cliff back.
It's really full of.
Oh, you're back with us, Cliff. We lost you for a minute.
Sorry about
that. Yeah, you were saying about it was a very full Jewish life where everything revolved around the shul.
Yeah, very much revolved around the shul as a teenager, growing up in Stanmore, and then it was my great love was football as a child and as a teenager, and my formative years were all spent in and around Stanmore shul.
And did you play football?
I did, yeah. I played for Stanmore Club. I wasn't a great player, to be fair, but I did play and always loved playing the game as well.
And so your family background then, growing up in those days, had your family come from a different part of London? Where did they emigrate from Europe?
Originally from Poland and Russia, but my father's family grew up. My father grew up in Stoke Newington, but then moved to Hendon. And my mother's family, my mother grew up in Stamford Hill, and they moved to Edgware when my mother was a teenager. And my parents got married in 1954 and settled initially in Edgware, and then bought this house in Stanmore in London Road in 1954, a couple of years before I was born. And they lived there until the mid-70s when they moved to Jellicoe Gardens, a little further up the Uxbridge Road, but also in Stanmore.
Incredible. So you basically spent your childhood in Stanmore. What school did you go to?
I started off originally at Aylward Primary School, which was based in Stanmore, and then at 11 I went to Haberdashers' Asks in Elstree.
Oh, just down the road from us now.
Exactly.
And eventually, of course, after having kids and raising a family, you emigrated again to Radlett.
Yes, I moved to Radlett in 1999. My boys, we wanted them to go to Radlett Prep, and so it seemed like a good move to come and live in the area. And we love it, and would never consider leaving Radlett. It's a great place to live.
And how many children do you have?
I have three children: a daughter who lives in Boreham Wood, and two sons who, during lockdown, in fact, moved out and have now they're now living together in a flat in Cricklewood. So we're now home alone.
Yeah, exactly. And one of your boys is in football with you.
Yes, my younger son Mark. He started out working as a football agent. Didn't really enjoy that, particularly as he was working from home during COVID, and then moved to Brentford Football Club, and he's now leading the team in the venue sales department, and is obviously extremely busy as a result of getting promotion to the Premier League. It's exploded, the amount of work involved.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been through this journey with you a little bit, because I remember you invited me to, it was Griffin Park, the old stadium, about 4 or 5 years ago now. And I know when you joined the club, you became chairman 8 years ago, but about must have been 4 or 5 years ago when I came as your guest. And at that time, I think you were playing Leeds actually that evening, but you were pushing up the top half of the table. But when you joined Brentford, you were in, I think, League One, not in the Championship.
No, we were in League One, and when I first got involved with the club, they were spending a lot of the owner's money, and the owner asked me to take a look at where it was all going. It was obviously my financial background, and I also got involved in buying the land on which the new stadium currently sits, which we did in 2012, and it took 8 years from buying the land to finally building and finishing off the stadium. So it's been a long journey. At that time, we were in League One, and we were planning to have a stadium that was capable of being used in the Championship. But by the time we got to 2016 and we were preparing to build the stadium, we realized that we needed to rethink our model, because we'd got ourselves established in the Championship and felt that the Premier League was where we should be aiming for. And so we had to redesign the stadium to make it Premier League ready, which was what we did. And fortunately, the stars were aligned, and as and when we finally are able to have fans back in the stadium, we were able to do that in the Premier League. And frankly, it could not have been written any better.
Yeah, it's been a tremendous story. And you mentioned about your own professional background, because you were an accountant. And how did that journey happen from accountant to football chairman?
So I was a partner in originally in a firm called Levy G, a very well-known Jewish firm based originally in Chalk Farm, and then moved to the West End in 1994. And the owner of Brentford was one of my clients in the middle 2000s. And as their business was progressing and growing, the CEO came to me and said, "Can you find me a CFO? Because I really feel like we need somebody permanently in-house." And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that for you." And I started interviewing candidates. And halfway through the process, I suddenly thought to myself, why am I trying to find someone a job that I'd really like to do myself? So I went to the CEO and said, "Have you considered me?" And he said, "No, why would I consider you? You're a partner in a top 10 firm of accountants. Why would you be interested?" And I said, well, I am interested, and I'd be very keen to take on the role. And he said, fine. And that was it.
Incredible. And so therefore you came in, the club was in League One. You felt that there were significant changes that you could bring in terms of getting the club on a firmer financial footing and run it in an even better way. And how did you find that transition when you came to the club?
Well, it was a very small club. I mean, we fundamentally, Brentford is a small club. So we had a relatively small number of people working off field. And it's probably fair to say that some of the people weren't going to do well on the journey as we decided to grow and develop the business. And so that process has taken place over the last 7 or 8 years as we've expanded and done better on the field. We've had to do better off the field. And I've worked with the CEO, the previous CEO and the current CEO to help the business grow and develop. Our owner at the time only owned 35% of the club, but he had an option to take control, and he was lending the club a lot of money. And I said, look, if you're lending the club money, someone else comes in and buys it, then you're stuck. You're a creditor. You might be secured creditor. There's not much you can do. So you should exercise your option, take control of the club, and then at least you're master of your own destiny. So in June 2012, that's exactly what we did. He took a 96% stake in the club. We actually on the same day bought the land for the new stadium. We then assembled some additional land which we needed to be able to make the whole thing work. And 8 years later, the stadium was complete. And 1 year after that, we're in the Premier League.
It's unbelievable, really. And one thing I wanted to focus on is your talent that you bring, because you talked about your accountancy background. That was obviously useful to come in and I guess tidy up the club financially and look forward to expansion. But when I came that evening to watch Brentford Leeds as your guest, behind the scenes in the bar and with different ex-players around and different personalities, one thing that struck me was your abilities as an ambassador for the club, because you had a beaming smile that night and everyone just warmed to you. And so there must be an aspect of the role where it's about those people skills, the soft skills, as well as the financial expertise.
Absolutely. It's a really important part of the job. When I tell people that I work 6 days a week, I really do work 6 days a week, because when you are leading the club as chairman, you do have a very important ambassadorial role, not only on match days, but also in club meetings. We meet as clubs originally in the FL every couple of months. Now in the Premier League, we meet again every couple of months. And so you have a big role to play in presenting the club and being the face of the club. The owner himself is someone who likes to stay in the background. And so it suits him for me to be that ambassador. And when I'm talking to sponsors, when I'm talking to fans, whatever you're doing, you have to be completely on message and alert all of the time. Just one simple example. I got to Crystal Palace early on Saturday, and as I walked to the ground, a fan came up to me and he started complaining about the ticketing system and the fact that he'd applied for tickets and they didn't come, and the post had let him down, and what a mess it was. And I explained that we have had some challenges with not only our ticketing system, but we've had staff with COVID, we've had staff self-isolating. It's been a really tough period for everyone at the club, probably been under-resourced. And so I explained all of this to him, and he said, well, thank you very much. I told him where to go to pick up his tickets. And an hour later, he tweeted, saying, fair play to Cliff Crown, bumped into him. I told him how unhappy I was, and he explained everything to me, and fair play to him. And that just shows you that you have to be really aware of what can happen, and therefore the ambassadorial role is really a really important part of my job.
Yeah, 100%. And also, in terms of Brentford's standing in the football world, that you really carry that on your shoulders. And it was something that when I went to see Brentford play back in the mid-90s, it really was a club with severe limitations in terms of where it was going. But I mean, if you could just summarize for us, what has been the secret to Brentford's success? Because obviously a couple of years ago, I wished you commiserations when you narrowly missed out on the opportunity to get into the Premier League in the playoffs. And then to come back the next season to go that extra yard and get into the Premier League shows a real determination and consistency over those 2 years. So obviously it's about consistency and about goals and about defense and playing well. But how do you describe the secret behind this meteoric rise?
I think largely it's about togetherness. It's about the way in which, as a club, we bond and we work together. I think one of the big issues is that from the very top to right down to the bottom, everyone is aligned in their thinking. We don't take a short-term view. We've always taken a medium-term view. And as many people who follow football will know, our biggest success has been our recruitment policy. We have unearthed a number of gems over the years, which we have developed. And what people forget is that actually we develop these players. So we have a footballing philosophy, we have a style of play, and we ensure that all of our players learn that style of play and play to that philosophy, and we improve them. And I've seen many a player come to us who at the beginning looks okay and potentially could be good. And then as they develop and as they grow and as we become more successful, so do they.
I mean, none more so maybe than Ollie Watkins.
Absolutely. Ollie Watkins came to us from Exeter City. He was a young man, I think he was 18 years of age, and we saw the potential in him. It's the same with many of the other players. Neil Mopay, who's now at Brighton. We saw the potential and we helped develop them. And I think, to be honest, I think the way in which we play football helps our players become better. We're very attack-minded. We're not defensive as a team. We're high pressing, and we play consistently across both our first team and our B team. So everybody is aligned on how we do things and the way we do things. We are very keen on picking good people, good eggs, people who we know have got the right mentality and understand the importance of dedicating themselves to improving and playing football. And so that philosophy that runs throughout the club, it's a massive team effort. Let's be honest. No one individual stands out from the other. We all work together. As coaches come and go, we replace them. We plan ahead. There's a lot of planning that goes into the transfers, the new members of staff. And it's a big team effort and always done with humility.
And along that journey then, what would you describe as your proudest moment? If you could think of one particular time where you looked around and you felt, that moment of joy, that moment of pride.
Can I pick two, Rabbi?
Yeah.
Okay. From a club perspective, there's no question the outstanding moment was standing in the director's box 5 minutes or so before the Arsenal game last week, 2 weeks ago. Remember, I came into the club and I got involved very early on in buying the land where the stadium is built. I've been involved in the building of the stadium, in the financing of it, in every part and aspect of our journey through the League One, through the Championship, now to the Premier League, and to be there and see the amazing number of fans, a full house, the atmosphere, the fact it was Premier League, the fact that it was against the team I supported as a young boy. Immensely proud to be part of that journey, and to see it all happen live on TV was just fantastic. The other big moment for me was, I think, much more personal, and that was in 2019. I was appointed chairman of the FA Cup committee, and as a result of that, I got the honour to be introduced to the teams at the FA Cup final, and Manchester City played Watford, and to do that alongside Prince William was a very big moment for me as I walked out onto the turf at Wembley Stadium, and then to watch the game and actually have tea with Prince William at half time was a very big moment in my life. And I must say to you that his mother would have been extremely proud of him. What a delightful young man he is. Yeah,
absolutely. And so many highs to speak of. Are there any difficult moments? Are there any sort of moments you look back at, the most challenging moments that you're able to share in terms of, being at the club, the highs and lows? What if you can think of a moment where you felt frustrated or things looked dark for the club, or or any particular challenges that you had to find the strength to overcome?
Sure, plenty of them along the way, let me tell you. That is football. There's lots of highs and lows. Any Brentford fans who are watching tonight will definitely remember the Trotter penalty in 2012 when he hit the bar, and in the last minute we needed to win 1-0 to get promoted to the Championship, and he hit the bar and the ball went down the other end, and Doncaster scored, and we were had to go into the playoffs. And again, as Brentford fans will know, our record in playoffs until last season was played 9, lost 9. So that was a pretty dark moment. I've had a fair amount of abuse on Twitter over the years, which again is tough. You have to kind of steel yourself and get used to things like that. It's unpleasant, but that's unfortunately the way of the world. And then, of course, there's the usual difficult business decisions that you have to make, hiring and firing of staff, dealing with any of the financial challenges that come along the way. But that's part and parcel of running a business. And ultimately, a football club is a business, and it needs to be run like a business.
In terms of the future, I guess the club is finding its feet in the Premier League and got off to a great start. Where would you like to take this club?
Oh, into Europe.
And, why not? And yeah, absolutely. And I guess sky's the limit in terms of what that could do for the club, and you could establish yourself in the top half of the Premier League.
Absolutely. I mean, as I've said to people in the past, if you think about how far we've come in the last 5 years, if we could replicate that and go as far again in the next 5 years, who's to say that we're not capable of establishing ourselves in the top 10 and potentially challenging for a place in Europe? Everything is possible. Of course, it's going to be incredibly tough, as many other clubs have found it, but we're going to give it a good go, that's for sure.
Wonderful. And we spoke about some of the lows. You mentioned Twitter. You mentioned some of the abuse that you get, and I know that a lot of people in football or in the public eye receives real hate out there, just part and parcel. I had a question about anti-Semitism as a Jew, and someone who's identified, as a Jew over the years, how's that been? Have you faced any specific abuse based on your religion?
No, I'm very pleased to say I haven't. That's not to say it doesn't exist in football, because we know it does. But personally, I've never had any anti-Semitic abuse at all.
That's great. And I guess in terms of the game in general, I mean, the whole taking the knee, I know that Brentford dropped that last season, brought it back now, probably in line with other Premier League clubs. But we had a question from our mutual friend, Jonathan Metlis, who asked, what's your approach to stamping out racial hatred in football?
We're taking a very tough stance. We spend a lot of time and effort on the issues of equality, diversity, and inclusion. We have an EDI officer at the club, and we will root out any people who racially abuse our players or our staff, and will be very firm in our determination to stamp it out at Brentford. People who are racially abusive are not welcome at the club, and anybody like that, we don't want them. The Premier League are very, very help the clubs greatly in this endeavour. They have a whole team of people that support all of the Premier League clubs, which is really good, certainly compared to the EFL, who don't have the resources available to do something like that. And so we are very, very focused on ensuring that we have no racial hatred and abuse at Brentford.
And what about the impact on the community? I know that's one thing that you had been working on in the past, especially with this transition to the new stadium. You were talking then about the benefits to the local community that the club could bring. How has that gone in terms of community development?
Well, community has been a big focus of the club. I'm pleased to say for well over 30 years. So even when we were in League Two and League One, and we were in League Two as short a time ago as 2009, the Community Sports Trust has been very active in the local community. As part and parcel of the purchase of the land and the building of the stadium, in order to get planning permission, we agreed to support the community even more. And as part of that process, we had an audit, and the audit showed that the value of the work we do in the community back in 2016 was £13.7 million per annum. So that's money we are saving the local council by all of the work we do with the disadvantaged, with the young, the elderly, those with disabilities, things like losing weight for those who are obese, and lots of other activities that we do both in schools and outside of schools to support the community. And then, of course, you've got the obvious benefits now of being in the Premier League, where you've got lots and lots of people coming into the area every couple of weeks, which is great for the local business community, and that's great for the borough of Hounslow. So we've been very focused on our community work for many, many years, and I'm glad to say that that is increasing and growing exponentially at the moment.
Amazing. And I was just going to ask another thing as well, in terms of, your media presence as well. I mean, how demanding is that when you have to sort of represent the club on TV, radio? Have there been any sort of tough points there, or is that quite a challenging aspect of the role of being the face of the club in the media?
I personally, I suppose I'm fortunate. I don't find it particularly challenging. I'm quite happy to be in the media as and when required. It's not something that I have to do a great deal of, frankly. But as you can imagine, the day after getting promoted, we did a media day at the stadium. I was interviewed both on Sky and on ITV, and at various occasions over the years. Of course, I've been on Talk Sport and on Sky TV, and it's just something. Again, it's another part of the job. It's something else that you have to be able to do, and you don't always get it right. You can often sometimes make mistakes, and that's fine. It's just part and parcel of doing the best you can for the club and representing them in the best light possible.
And in terms of the Brentford fan base, what would you say to them in terms of the impact they can have? Because of course everyone was absent last season because of COVID, and
Sure.
there were no fans allowed. But now that they're back, what kind of difference has that made, and what contribution do the fans have?
Brentford's history means that we have a lot of fans who've been going to Brentford for 40, 50, 60 years. When I first became chairman, our average gate was about 4,700. And we had, at our last season in Griffin Park, we had 6,600 season ticket holders. Now, in the new stadium, we have 11,500 season ticket holders, and we have, on top of that, 13,000 members. They're people who want tickets to go to games. You have to be a member to be able to buy a ticket. And there'll be most of them fans of the club, but also those who are interested in coming to watch Premier League football in the local area. So the growth in the fan base has been extraordinary. Effectively, you've got two sets of fans. Those who've been with us for those 40, 50, 60 years, who have seen more than enough poor quality football, struggling football in Leagues 2 and League 1, and then have absolutely had the time of their lives over the last 7 or 8 years. And then you've got the new fans who perhaps have only been fans or coming to games regularly over the last 3 to 5 years, and they've pretty much only known the good times. And so you have to cater for both. But, I think we all know in football that what COVID has taught us unquestionably is football is nothing without the fans. And as I said earlier, that atmosphere against Arsenal was just remarkable. And obviously we hope to have a full stadium every home game this season. Even on Saturday at Crystal Palace, we took 2,750 fans to the game, and they sang their heart out, and they were absolutely brilliant. And it does lift the spirits of the players. It definitely pushes them on, particularly in the home games, to do that little bit better. So again, can't thank the fans enough for the support they're giving us, and so pleased for them, certainly the ones that have been with us for so long, that they're enjoying this great opportunity.
Do you ever get any thank you letters?
Yes, we do now.
Gratifying.
Yes, no, it's very nice. It's very nice. And when I see fans on my way to games, more often than not, they thank me and say what a great job we're doing and how much they're enjoying it. And of course, why wouldn't you? Particularly those that, as I say, have been with us a long time. This is the best year of their life from a football perspective, unquestionably, and they're all going to be going to games home and away and enjoying the delights of the Premier League. But of course, we also need to keep picking up points, because it can soon turn the other way if we keep losing matches.
Absolutely. I'd like to remind the audience, if they want to write in any questions for Cliff, I'm very happy to present them to him. So if you write that, if you're on Facebook or if you're on whatever the USTV, whatever forum you may be on, if you want to type into the chat bar a question, it should come through to us here this evening. So, Cliff, one thing I wanted to go back on, because to talk to you this evening, there's one thing to talk about the football, which is compelling. But in terms of your own personal life lessons along the way, I wanted to dwell on that, because you think about it from your role as an accountant and being involved in the process of recruiting, a finance chief at Brentford, and then putting your own name into the hat. I mean, that took guts, being prepared to do something you weren't familiar with, because all of this extra ambassadorial stuff and all of the football knowledge and being involved with thousands of people's lives and being and literally being responsible for thousands of people being in a good or bad mood over a weekend is a much more expansive role than being an accountant. I mean, I'm sure that accountancy has its own challenges and its own rewards, but such a huge platform you took on. I guess it tells me that there's something about you that's prepared to take a leap of faith into something that was unknown. How do you feel about that analysis?
It's very accurate, to be honest. I was 54 years of age when I gave up my life as a practicing accountant to go into commerce, not really knowing how it was going to pan out. And people at the time, people said to me, well, is this a good move? And I said, well, give me a year or two and I'll tell you. And of course, it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me in my life from a professional and business point of view, because it's given me this opportunity. And now, having got to the Premier League, to be able to say I'm chairman of a Premier League football club, it's just beyond my wildest dreams. As a young Jewish boy playing football, all I wanted to do was be centre forward for my football club and score the winning goal in the cup final. And that's very unlikely. So the next best thing is to be involved in the running of a football club. And I've been given this incredible opportunity. And like most things in life, I grasp it with two hands and I give it 110%. I'm very, very committed to the club and to the business. And frankly, I'm loving every minute of it. And I can't take the smile off my face because it's just too incredible for words.
You think about all the famous legends that are going to be coming to Brentford, and you'll be travelling there as well over the season. We were talking about people's heroes, all over, international heroes, and you're right in the thick of that. Do you think that it's going to be the hardest challenge now lies ahead?
Oh, there's no question that staying in the Premier League is a big ask, but I'm confident that we have the ability to do that. We're certainly set up as a club with the right structure and the right philosophy to go that step and stay there. But we know it won't be easy. We'll need a bit of luck along the way, that's for sure. We'll certainly need to keep some of our players free from injury, and that can play a big part. Probably need VAR to go our way a few times, and that's not easy. So yeah, it's really about a real team effort. Everybody working together to try and get the best result possible for us as a club. And I know that it won't be for the want of trying, but realistically, I do feel that we have more than enough in our resources to stay up this season.
Well, so far the form is very good. The first two games.
It's a very small sample size, Rabbi.
Absolutely. We know that VAR backwards is Rav.
Yes.
So I'm interested in that. But and Alison by your side, Alison, your wife, is big part to play in your life, and and she's been supportive of your mad life.
Well, she's very supportive. She has to put up with it, and I thank her for that, because she knows how much it means to me and how much I enjoy it. And so, yeah, behind every great man is a great woman, and she's a great woman.
And when you're not at Brentford, and what other hobbies do you enjoy?
Well, don't really have much time for hobbies, to be honest, Rabbi. I enjoy going on holiday, which generally speaking has to be during international breaks. So fitting around the football season, and my family, spending time with my family, I really enjoy. One of my other big loves is music. I love music. I'm always listening to music. So I would say that's a big love of mine. But frankly, working the hours I do, it's pretty hard to fit in much in the way of hobbies. I love golf. I'm not very good at it, but if I said I had one hobby, it would be golf. But I probably need to retire to be able to start playing golf more regularly.
But I don't think that's happening anytime soon, because you are really energized by what you're doing.
Totally, absolutely, totally energized. And, you know, I don't want to wish my life away, but I can't wait for the next game. And I'm counting down the days for the next match. And so, of course, the big one, Liverpool, 25th of September, is certainly a big game for us to look forward to. And I hope that you'll be able to join me at a game that takes place, obviously not on Shabbat.
Absolutely, yeah. Alas, Jurgen Klopp's making the trip on Shabbos, but I can't do it in my position.
No.
Even the VAR and the RAV won't allow that. So no, but it is incredible that you're going to be hosting these amazing stars of the game. But no, I'd love to be your guest once again at the right time. And it's always a pleasure. I can't wait to see the buzz in the new stadium, because having seen your journey and been with you those years ago, who would have thought? You never know what's going to happen. And as we approach Rosh Hashanah, I guess there's an idea that Shana has two meanings. It can mean Lishanot, which means to repeat, and it can mean Shinui, which means to change. And every year there can be a repetition or change. It's a bit like being in the league. You can have if you don't get through the playoffs, you're back repeating the same league. But now you've had that Shinui, that change, that now you're in the big league. I guess spiritually, each of us has that chance in each year of our life that we're going to be the same or different. And one of the things I think that you've lived out is that ability to take the leap and change, because you could have stayed comfortably in the accountancy firm, tried and tested route, but you're willing to take that risk, and it's paid you back and given you a very rewarding part of your career.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I joined our owner's company, he had a minority stake in Brentford. Greg Dyke was chairman of Brentford Football Club at the time, a very well-known individual. And the opportunity arose, frankly, was in 2013 when Greg was appointed chairman of the FA. And so he had to resign from Brentford. And I went to our owner and said, Greg's leaving to join the FA. Is it okay if I take over as chairman? I'd like to become chairman of the club. And he said, yeah, by all means, why not? I knew more certainly about the finances of the club than anyone else involved in his business. And so it seemed like a good fit. And even in those days, I couldn't ever imagine we would be in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Just beyond our wildest dreams. So to make it in 8 years is remarkable.
In terms of a life lesson, someone's asking, what's the biggest life lesson that you've learned and you've kind of taken on? If you could give someone advice be it in football or be it in life? You know, what would be something that you've really experienced that you would advise people in a general way in their life?
Well, my kids will laugh because they know me as somebody who believes in sayings. So one of my favorite sayings is nobody plans to fail, but far too many people fail to plan. And that for me is a big life lesson. Planning ahead, thinking ahead is so important, and it's something that we as a football club have done a lot of over the years, constantly thinking ahead. The other thing I think from my point of view is it's good to look at the big picture and to have people that can see the big picture, but you also need people who are also good at the detail, because when I look at some of the communications that go to our fans, I approve every communication to fans, and every single time there's a mistake through that process. And I'm the last person in the line, so I come to it fresh to make sure that we pick up on the mistakes. And that's just me because I'm good on detail. That's something that's part of my DNA. So I think you need to have both of those attributes within the business. Obviously, there'll be different people with those attributes, but it's really important that you surround yourself with good people. And I've been very fortunate that I have been surrounded by good people. You know, so much of our success is down to all of them. I'm just one small part of a big team that have brought success to the club. But because we're all aligned, because we all think about where we're trying to go together, then that's what has brought us the success that we've had. And so working as part of a team and understanding and appreciating the qualities of people is really important. And don't be afraid to make tough decisions. You know, it's never easy to make tough decisions, but that's something you have to do. One of the things that is very different from being an accountant is, as an accountant, you're there to advise clients and you suggest and advise things that they should do. But actually, when you're running a business, you have to make those decisions yourself, back your judgment, and stand and fall by those decisions. And that's been very, very exciting, I think, for me to be able to do that. And by and large, as part of a bigger team, we've done pretty well.
Well, not I do remember that you are a Cohen.
I am.
The Cohen's role is to lead. The Cohen's role is to take risks. The Cohen Gadol, the high priest, was the one who went into the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur. And if anything was missing, if he made any mistakes, it was all on him and it would affect the entire nation. And I guess you've got that in your Jewish DNA as well. The Cohen was the person who gave everything, risked it all to be the leader for the people and to give them hope. And indeed, when the Cohen Gadol, the high priest, came out of the Holy of Holies, he would smile to the people, even if he knew that Hashem was planning a difficult year for that generation. He would always smile to put people at their ease, even if he knew the truth. So it's about empowering others and making them feel good. And I think that's one of the things that you definitely have. You know, when you have that beaming presence around the club, you do give a great feeling to those around you. I've seen that myself. So
thank you.
So I wanted to say again, Cliff, thank you so much for giving your time this evening. It's
Pleasure.
really it's wonderful having you at Radlett. Hope to see you in Shul soon. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and it's really great to have you with us in Radlett and for you to be able to share with us your incredible journey and the insights you picked up along the way. So, wishing you and Brentford every success this season. Not to beat Liverpool, but apart from that, I wish you every success this season.
Thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure to talk to you as always, and thank you for your good wishes. We'll go easy on Liverpool if you like. Make sure that we do well against everyone else.
Thank you so much, Cliff, and thanks everyone for tuning in this evening. We will be back after the Yom Tovim for more US in the City. We hope to get back in terms of physical, in-person educational events very soon as well. But for now, thank you, Cliff, and wishing everyone good night.